Hey guys, welcome and welcome back to my channel. Today I had to come on here and talk to you guys about something that's really been on my heart, which is freeing our creative spirits. I've really been reflecting on how creativity moves through us. As someone who's been trying to tap into my creativity, make content, show up, as you guys can tell right now, I've been hitting this friction and coming up against this blockage within myself when it comes to letting my creativity flow. I wanted to share with you guys what I've been learning about letting that go. The first thing is that creativity flows when you really release control and you trust in yourself. As creatives, we often want to get it right. We want to make sure we do it in the right way. And so we hold ourselves back so much. When we have an idea, we think that we have to have it all figured out before we move forward with it. We think that we have to do it at the right time and make sure that everything else on our to-do list is crossed off. And we plan it out, we map it out perfectly before we use it. Whatever creativity looks like for you, often we try to filter it and control it before we even let it come through. And that's what really ends up blocking ourselves off. Creativity is really this flow, and we can only harness it if we open ourselves as a vessel, and we do that through self-trust. We do that by trusting our ideas and our insights as they come in. Creativity is ever present, right? It's all around us, and everybody has the ability to tap into it, to utilize it, to create greater abundance, to create greater inspiration on this earth. But only some really choose to. Only some allow themselves to. But those who do, they trust the ideas that come to them when they do, how they do, and they move with it. You see, when you get an idea and you wait for it and you push it off and you want to map it out to perfection before you act on it, when you want to procrastinate it until everything else in your ordinary life is done, then you lose it. It fades out and you don't allow yourself to tap into that magic. Creativity, I've realized it comes in like this spark, sometimes out of nowhere, sometimes when you're in the shower, often when you're on the toilet, when you're driving, when you're cleaning your room, whatever it is, and you're like, oh, that's an idea, that's interesting. Let me think about that later. Let me get back to that later. Let me go to Barnes & Noble's and write about it. That's what I was going to do with this video. I was doing my yoga and then I was about to go to the gym, and I thought, okay, well, I'll come back to this thought when I can give it my full attention, when I go to Barnes & Noble's to study later. And then I was like, girl, no, right here, right now. These inspirations will come in hot. And then when we don't move with them, we don't let them flow through us right then and there, they kind of dissipate. And we lose that oomph behind them. So when you get an idea, when you feel inspired by something you see, by something you think, right then and there, the second you get out of the shower, when you pull up to a red light, when you put the broom down, real quick, just write it out. Just a couple lines about what you're thinking, what you're feeling, even if it's not fully cohesive yet. Often, I'd hesitate to put out a creative idea, to make a YouTube video, to write about something, to speak on something in some way because, my thought process isn't fully formed and I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say, but I just got this feeling. But those ideas really come together, and we only start to see the full picture once we allow ourselves to lean into them and we take the time to start expressing. I realized that once I start just writing it out, once I start just, giving my vision, giving my ideas the time and the attention, I'll see it really start to come together and form a beautiful life of its own. I was kind of thinking about it. I was kind of thinking of creativity as a child, Like I said earlier, we are conduits of creativity. And if we look at the chakra system, we got all these chakras, which are our energy centers responsible for different things. And then we have our sacral chakra, which is right by our reproductive organs. And that is a chakra responsible for creativity, passion, sex, pleasure, but creativity in all senses. And I kind of think of it as creativity as a child. And when you first maybe give birth to the child, when you first put it out there, it might not be fully developed, right? But as you nurture it, as you give it the time and the attention, it becomes this strong being of its own. The more we nurture our creativity and we pour into our creative ideas, the stronger they become. So essentially, just start moving with it, just start expressing it. We have to be willing to surrender to not knowing how it'll look in the end, to not knowing how it'll be received, to not fully understanding the ideas when it first comes, but trusting in it enough and valuing our creative insight and our creative process enough to give it the time to tap in and really get present with it. I say presence because, like I said before, creativity is such an innate part of human experience. And often we're going about our lives so distracted and so outside of ourselves that we're not even hearing our own insights, our own ideas, our own reactions and inspirations from things. Because we're just, we're scrolling, we're doing, and we're busy. But when you really come back into yourself and you get present in your body, and when something lights you up, instead of just rushing to the next thing, you sit with it for a second and you allow yourself to process and experience it, you'll find so many ideas just open up and free within your own mind, within your own being. And it's important that you let yourself play with them. That's the next thing. A lot of creatives, including myself, we put so much pressure on ourselves, like I said before, to do it right, to this standard that we set on ourselves. But again, that's coming from that place of restriction and control, which pushes creativity away. But when we can really allow ourselves to play with passion, we open ourselves in such a beautiful way. We open ourselves to discover new styles, to discover what we like. The creative process, it has to be enjoyable. If we're trying to create, but the entire time we're beating ourselves up and we're making ourselves redo every single step, honestly, I've been struggling with. But if we're constantly rejecting ourselves as we're doing things, and all we're focused on is getting the results, then the process is not going to be enjoyable and it's not going to be beautiful. The most beautiful creations, they just radiate an energy of freedom, of a sense of ease. Inspiration is playful, it's not forced, and we can't force ourselves. We have to go in it with an energy of exploration, of playing with different methods, different tones, trying different styles until we find our signature way of doing things, until we find the way that works until it becomes a process we really love, and that's how we'll start to see results that we really love. Because even if we end up creating something beautiful, even if the project turns out amazing, if the process is working against the grain, rigid process, we're not going to enjoy the result, and we're not going to be able to really keep doing it. It's not going to be sustainable. In order for it to be sustainable, it has to feel good. It has to be an enjoyable process. And I think a way that we can make that experience more enjoyable is really inviting that inner childlike play. That inner child who's not afraid to step out in the sun and just share their voice, just playing with life and getting really curious about things. It opens up portals of inspiration. It brings an energy to our creations of expansion. We also gotta stop comparing ourselves to people who seem like they're ahead of us, to people who seem to be making a bigger impact or getting more recognition in whatever way, or just seem more skilled than us in whatever way. I was reading about this in The Artist's Way, which I just got into the first chapter of, but when beginner creatives, they compare themselves to masters, people who are more advanced, then it often really discourages them. Because when you see someone else doing it already so much better than you, and then you look at your own and it's like, what the fuck is this? And you think, damn, is it even worth it for me to try? Is it even worth it for me to try to put this shit out there when they're putting out stuff like that? Who would want to see mine over that? And that's where a lot of creatives stop. But the thing is that most people, they don't start like a mastermind creative genius straight out the womb. They get there through practice, they get there through showing up, through opening themselves, and by straight up having the audacity to keep trying, and by having the audacity to be bad at what they do. A lot of us, when we see ourselves not meet a certain standard, and we give up and we shut ourselves off. But if we really want to get to greater levels, we have to be willing to start off at a very humble starting point. We have to be willing to look at our work and be like, damn, that's some bullshit. But then a month later, maybe we'll look at it and we'll say, oh, okay, this is a little bit less bullshit. We have to be willing to embrace the fact that we don't know what we're doing yet, that we're in the process. And through that, when we're like, okay, this is acceptable for me to start here because I can get there, we believe in ourselves and we keep going with that, then we're able to eventually reach that point of mastery. Also, everybody got their own way of doing things, and everybody has their own talents and their own voices. So I really had to realize, okay, I don't have to be like that person who's really great or that person who's doing it in this big way, because I can't be them. The best version of myself will still be different from the best version of them. And I have to know that, and know that people aren't necessarily even looking for the smartest the most brilliant, the most perfect version of content, or, you know, products or paintings or photos or whatever it is, or music. They're looking for something that feels real. They're looking for something that they really resonate with. And people will resonate with different artists, with different creators, with different styles, right? And the most powerful thing you can do is embrace who you are and what you have to offer, even from that state of imperfection. There's something in you that nobody else has. There is a creative spark that sets you apart from everybody else. And you will tap into that when you stop comparing yourself and trying to dilute and downplay your worth based off of a side-by-side analysis with someone else from a totally different place, from a totally different life, doing something different. You know what I'm saying? We also find that creative spark, and we strengthen it when we use it. Like I said, it's a matter of practice and of showing up and of tapping into more and more of ourselves. You can be inspired by other people though, for sure. Like, I think it's very helpful to see other creators and to see other people doing what you want to be doing and to learn from them, to see different styles, different formats, different methods, and see what you like, see what resonates. Maybe try it for yourself and see what feels good. But it has to all come through you, and you've got to trust yourself to carry that piece of that creative spark, to be a vessel for that energy. It is important that we do take an inspiration, and that we're always filling our creative cup in a sense, that we're filling ourselves with inspiration in different forms. You know, I was thinking, the master painter, he doesn't become an amazing expert painter by staring at paintings all day, by staring at paint all day. Like, yes, that too, but they become an amazing painter by looking at the world, by analyzing nature and landscapes and seeing how it functions, how it moves, by paying attention to detail, by looking at different faces, right? Inspiration comes from living and being present in this world and taking note of the things around us, taking note of how things move and function, and how we are moved by the things around us, by the things within us, by allowing ourselves to be inspired and to flow with and to play with and be present with life. From that state, we will draw all the inspiration we need. When you let yourself flow with creativity, you allow it to grow and come into fruition in the most beautiful, sweet, and fulfilling way. And that's about all I gotta say on this for now, but I have a feeling I'm definitely gonna come back to this with some more insight. If you made it all the way to the end, I am very grateful for your presence here, and I really do hope this resonated. If it did, I would deeply appreciate you leaving a comment, a like, and making sure to subscribe so you don't miss another video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!